Now I would like to introduce our panel. They are rock stars. We have Barbie Casasus, who's a senior director and a consumer strategist at CEB Iconic Culture. Barbie specializes in the multicultural market. She's been in the industry for almost 20 years and has experience and a background in public relations, communications, multicultural marketing that she applies to her analysis, helping her clients customize programs, products, messaging to reach specific audience and demographics, so really research-driven campaigns. She also has a blog, Fringe and Feathers, where she documents lifestyle inspiration for the eyes and the soul. I like that. Maria Teresa Garcia Rosel is a multicultural senior manager at Unilever, and she, amongst many things that she does and the many hats that she wears, she manages the Viva Mejor Hispanic Scale platform. And throughout her career, she's had an expertise in lifestyle marketing and in the U.S. Hispanic consumer, and I've also had the pleasure of working with Maria Teresa in the past. Chef James, you may recognize from Telemundo's national morning show, Un Nuevo Día. Chef James has had a passion for great food since he was young, and that combined with his entrepreneurial spirit have led him to where he is today. He studied at the Cordon Bleu of Culinary Arts, where he graduated at the top of his class, and he's worked with various brands and products on radio and television. He was recently named one of the most social media friendly chefs by LatinKitchen.com and was also named Latin Chef of the Year by Latin Flavor Awards. We also have Yvette Marquez, who is the co-author and founder of Muy Bueno Cookbook. She draws her culinary inspiration from her grandmother's old world Mexican recipe and her mother's south of the border home-style dishes. Her blog has been named the top 100 food bloggers by Babbel.com, best food blogs by LatinKitchen.com, and she was also recently named one of the Latina bloggers you must know in 2014 by Latina magazine. Yvette also contributes to several publications, and she serves as a brand ambassador for several brands as well. Last but not least, we have Vianney Rodriguez, who is the founder of the blog Sweet Life, and her blog reflects being raised in a kitchen filled with laughter, stories, love, and the aromas of fresh tortillas on a comal, which sounds delicious. Vianney is also an award-winning blogger and has been recognized by Women's Day as a favorite food blogger. She was also recognized Latism's 2012 Best Latina Food Blogger and NBC Latino's Food Blogs We Love. Vianney also recently joined one of the clients that we work with at Hunter, Tabasco. She is one of our tastemaker bloggers, and she just recently visited the home of Tabasco in Avery Island. So definitely want to kick this off with Barbie, who's going to kind of talk to us about some of the insights and trends that are happening today in terms of the culinary landscape and food.
Awesome. Thank you, Annette. So I spend my days essentially observing different behavioral trends that are happening within the Hispanic market. So I thought just to start the conversation and the panel here today, I would just talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of how Latinos are connecting with food and trends that we're seeing in the marketplace, certainly, and also the broader influence that we see as a result of the mainstreaming of Hispanic culture and Hispanic food trends in the US. So just to level set, I mean, obviously, for those of you that are Latino in the room or have some sort of interaction with Hispanic culture, you understand that food plays a very important role in the Latino home, and we've seen certainly the recession enhance that reality or that sentiment for Latinos, because we do know that the Latinos are focusing on the home more and more, right? They're looking to enhance those experiences within the home, and food provides them an opportunity to do that. It isn't just about the accessibility to culture that food provides, but it's also the accessibility to social experiences that we really see Latinos emphasizing and having an incredibly strong appreciation for today. What we also know is that there is a great appreciation for indulgence around food. In fact, I'll talk a little bit about health in a second here, but as we track health trends, what we know is that this sentiment around indulgence has in fact been one of the biggest barriers as to why Latinos have had such a hard time really implementing action around healthier behaviors in the home. We're starting to see that shift, and I'll mention it in a second, but again, we just love our food, right? We love the essence of our food, we love the flavor of our food, and I think that there's a very strong cultural expectation, especially for the Latina woman and the person that we see responsible for a lot of the cooking within the home, even though gender dynamics have absolutely shifted. But it's a cultural expectation that we know good food. And we see a lot of those very fundamental values really certainly still being the foundation of food interaction for Hispanic consumers today. There's a sense of love behind food, right? For that Latina mother, those of us up here that are mothers, we understand that, right? Feeding your family, feeding guests, and showing love, or like demonstrating love, they're one and the same. And that certainly still continues to shape a lot of her behaviors around food. There's a strong sense of pride in our ability to know good food and to prepare good food, even if we're not preparing it from scratch. And then there's some new values that we see, right? And some new realities that we see really changing the food interaction. Convenience, you're gonna hear me talk about that a little bit more. I imagine you guys, from a blogger perspective, will touch on that as well. Personalization. She might not be cooking from scratch the way our moms did, but there's an expectation that she still be able to add her own personal touch to that. Health has certainly come into the fold. Discovery and balance are two other ones that you'll hear me talk a little bit about as well. So in terms of some of the shifts and trends, so we've been observing a lot of interesting things around occasions. These are consumers that are trying to figure out how to best leverage their interactions around food, whether it's for a social experience, as we see with family dinner time, right? So like in the mass market space, we've been tracking the decrease, right, in family dinner. People are just not able to spend as much time together over dinner. Someone's working, someone's not home, someone's dropping off a child, someone's working late hours. It doesn't mean that the desire isn't there, but what we see for the most part is that families are just not able to get together around the dinner table, and that the time that they're spending doing that has certainly been on the decline. Not the case within Latino culture. What we find is that Latinos are still trying to make that effort, perhaps not 7 days a week, but they're still very focused on finding those opportunities when they can get together around the dinner table. We also find that from the perspective of the mom, she's very focused on breakfast, right? So for her, she wants to be able to start the day with her family, and again, there's that value on the social engagement component, but she also wants to make sure that she's providing as much nutrition as possible. So that breakfast time is really important to her. From a millennial perspective, and we also see this on the older end of the age spectrum, there's an appreciation for convenience around day parts, right? Whether it's challenging our traditional notion of when we're supposed to eat, right? Because even though we've seen trends in snacking change for Latinos, the reality is most of us probably grew up with that belief that like snacking is going to ruin the meal, right? It's a deal breaker, right? You can't have something because we know we're going to eat a big lunch or we're going to eat a big dinner. And there's been a lot more flexibility around that. Younger Latinos are not bound by tradition in that same way. And then we also know that there's been a shift in employment, certainly within the Hispanic population. People are working later, people are working earlier, so there's definitely that appreciation for being able to challenge traditional notions of mealtime as well. And then, like I said, with snacking, I mean, the perception around snacking has changed. It continues to present an important opportunity for indulgence, but we also see that there's a really big interest in snacking from the perspective of discovery, like using that as an opportunity to immerse yourself in a new flavor, using that as an opportunity to perhaps have an interaction with a different culture through food, and we also see it as an important opportunity to create balance. So I'd mentioned before that one of the new values that we were seeing come into the fold was balance. So for this Latina mother or for the family, they're not willing to overhaul what we cook, right? Because we still value flavor and deliciousness. And like I said, that was one of the biggest barriers that we were seeing to the health space. So for her, she's looking to find that balance. So maybe I'll figure out a way to make a healthier dinner, but if there's an opportunity for me to eat a healthier snack, right, and get that protein or whatever it is that I'm looking for, that's certainly something that's going to resonate with her. In terms of kitchen dynamics, so convenience has been one of the biggest things that we've been looking at in terms of trends in the kitchen and shifts in the way in which she approaches food in the kitchen. For her, it's not necessarily about finding ways to cut corners. It's really about finding ways to be more efficient. We see this a lot with the Hispanic family. Like, working Hispanic parents are very concerned about not being able to spend as much time with the people that they love, right? So for them, it's how can I be more efficient in the things that I do without watering down the flavor, without having to give them something that's less, you know, than what they're going to expect, because that deliciousness aspect is certainly still there. So for her, she's constantly on the hunt for ideas. I'm sure you guys see this. You certainly, I'm sure, see it as well. Like, she's always on the hunt for ideas. How can I play with food? How can I discover with food? How can I feed my family the things that they're looking for? How can I expose myself to different flavors and have that sort of experiment in the home? They're also looking for more health ideas. So we're starting to see those trends where she is implementing health, perhaps not in every occasion, perhaps not in every meal, but she has that awareness and it's driving her to look to see what's out there. Again, she still needs that motivation, she still needs that flavor guarantee, right? If I'm gonna make a difference, is the flavor still gonna be there? The other interesting thing that we see with her is that she's still, especially for that bicultural mom or that younger mom, I'm sure you guys can attest to this as well, we still experience the Latina mama guilt, right? When we're not cooking the meals that our moms were making for us, when we're not preparing the food in the way that we would like to prepare the food, because that aspiration to share food in that very traditional way is still there, because again, that connection to like what I'm giving my family and the way that I feel for them, she still has that very strong association between both of those sentiments. So she's looking to compensate for that. And that can be through the ingredients that she's using. That can be through the beverage that maybe she's giving her family with that meal. That can be to the restaurant that they're going, right, when they're dining out of home. That can be based on a different recipe that she now has been exposed to that she knows is going to give her family the things that they're looking for. So she's really she's looking for that reassurance, essentially. Condiments are big. Condiments are a way that she's looking to add that personalization that I said up front. Ingredients are important. Ingredients across the spectrum of US Hispanics, that is the springboard for authenticity for them. It's also the springboard for experimentation. And we see this a lot. I deal with this with my clients all the time where they're like, do we need to create a new Hispanic product? Do we need to Latinize a product that we already have? And it's like, listen, they are using the ingredients as that measure for whether or not that packaged product is going to be fresh, whether or not that package is going to live up, that product is going to live up to their food expectations. That's also how they're experimenting. So if it's whether it's garlic or cilantro or tomatillo, whatever it is, they're looking at those ingredients, and because they know that there's a flavor guarantee associated with those ingredients, they're willing to take that risk, and they're willing to experiment with that flavor. And then, I mean, we've seen this for a very long time in terms of Latinos putting our own culinary twist on American foods. Given the mainstreaming of Hispanic influence today and how there's this willingness to explore, like, I mean, we all think things Latino are hot and certainly shaping the dynamics of the mainstream market. And we know that kids are certainly driving more and more influence into the home. We know the pabellón, right? We know that we take American foods, and it's not necessarily about Latinizing them. A lot of what we hear from Hispanic consumers today is that they don't feel like foods outside of our culture live up to their flavor expectations. You know, you might have seen on that first slide, I had that concept of abundance. Like, we look for abundance in flavor and texture. And the idea is, I'm not gonna Latinize this, I'm gonna give this the flavor that it needs. That's really the incentive behind it.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the questions I had for you is what is like a misconception that brands have when they're going to target the Latino market from that perspective, having to Latinize it, would you say, or
I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like I mean, we see it with marketing campaigns too, and I mean, there's certainly much debate, and we're in a time of a lot of change around Latino identity. A lot is changing, and I think the idea is, how do I Latinize it? How do I make it Latino enough? I think another big misconception is we only eat Latino foods. I mean, what is a Latino food anyway, right? Given the diversity of our culture and our community, but I think a lot of it you know, is also that. So we are seeing, right, that the awareness is slowly leading into action around trend. The interesting thing that we've been finding from a research perspective is that we find some differences based on gender. With the Latina mother, like if I would, you know, 10 years ago when I was looking at Latinas in health, there was very little action that we were seeing. And I think a lot of it was because if you tell her that she needs to change the way that she cooks or prepares a meal, it's like, that's a personal threat almost to her, right? Because you're telling her that she's doing something wrong by her family, right? And I think that a lot of marketers, a lot of brands, I think certainly the media, right, as ambassadors, certainly within our community, I think that we've taken a more mindful approach to how we talk food and health with this consumer. So I think today for her, she wants to lead by example within the home. In terms of men, I mean, we see that generation definitely influences how Hispanic men are interacting around food. On the older end of the age spectrum, we find that they're much more driven to embrace change, right? There's accountability that older Latino men are taking for their behaviors, and so for them, they're very driven to find that healthier alternative. They're very driven to lead a healthier lifestyle. On the younger end of the spectrum, the desire's there, but they expect convenience. Don't make me work for it, right? Make it easy for me based on where I buy my food, based on where I spend my time. I don't have to tell you that Latino kids have influence. We all know that. The point is, from a food and health perspective, that influence today is huge, because they're being informed and empowered by the school districts, by the school system, right? So it's a whole new kind of influence because they're experiencing it themselves and they feel empowered enough to bring that influence into the home because they have the tools, you know, whether it's the My Plate initiatives that are being brought into the school system, whether it's, I know at my son's school, they encourage him whenever he tries a new food or a healthy food to bring in a picture of it so that they can put it up on the cafeteria wall, right? It's part of their reality on a day-to-day basis. So that influence absolutely has increased from a health perspective. Generally speaking, what we know is that it's not just about the accessibility of Hispanic foods today to the mainstream. The Latino influence has changed the mainstream palate. It's changed the American food palate. You have a willingness to explore. You have a greater desire for more complex flavors. It's not just the spice aspect of it. I mean, that's absolutely there, and I'm sure you can speak to that. It's just more of a general desire for more complexity in flavors than in food. We've also seen Latino flavors serve as the bridge to other kinds of food, flavor profiles. We've certainly seen it with Thai food. We've seen it with Korean food. It's generally serving as that bridge, essentially, for the mainstream market. Street culture has absolutely been influenced across the US. I mean, not just in terms of food trucks, but just the idea of food on the go, and that's certainly big from a snacking perspective. It's also been interesting to see their influence on handheld foods, right? So if you think about our handheld foods, like un pastelito, I mean, there's meat in there, right? You know, and there's vegetables in there, and God knows what else it is that we throw in there. We've seen that abundance certainly influence handheld foods from a mainstream perspective as well. We also know that although there's a lot of bad food in our flavor profile and food that's not so good for you, we also know that we eat fresh and that there's still a lot of healthy foods within our flavor palette. So that's created a health halo from a general market perspective, and they've had an interest in further exploring Latino cuisine because of that health halo. But also understand that we've also seen Latinos really seeking to take cultural ownership, and I think certainly through bloggers and through chefs as well, because we know that in the past, the mainstreaming of Hispanic food has also meant the mutation of Hispanic food from a mainstream perspective as well. I mean, do people really know what Mexican cuisine is? It absolutely has mainstream, but people don't know what it authentically means. So we've seen that effort to hold on to that authenticity. Yikes. Hold on to the authenticity, ensure cultural ownership. There's also been an interest in exploring hyper-regionalism, right? Because our food is presented in this like homogeneous way here in the US, and the reality is there's so much diversity even within a country, which leads me to this next point where I think another misconception too is that the more diverse and multicultural our reality becomes, the more of a melting pot it kind of shifts towards, and that's not the reality. I mean, when we look at identity today, what we know is that we live in a world and in a society where it's very different from when our parents immigrated here many, many years ago. We're nowhere near post-racial granted, but the reality is that we're in a place where we can really be proud of and express our cultural heritage, right? So it's not about a melting pot effect, it's about ensuring authenticity as an American trait, not just as a Latino trait, right? But ensuring that you're having true access to what it is. And the reality is, our interaction with food is still very driven by our cultural background, right? And food is one of the most easily accessible platforms to make that connection. So that authenticity component of it is absolutely not going to go away. Just very quickly, I mean, whether it's for the brand people in the room, for the bloggers in the room, is you take, you know, just the very high level information that I shared around trends today, also understand that there are a couple of interesting things that are happening, certainly around the path to purchase, certainly around her journey to be inspired, to get information. It starts certainly before she enters the store, and the digital environment and the mobile platform is a very big part of that in her and her family, you know, looking for information, not just from the perspective of value, but that experimentation aspect that I talked about before in the home. Also understand that she's using it at point of sale, right? We know that she's very interactive, certainly when she's shopping, and we know that the mobile platform is absolutely extending that for her, whether it's she's seeing an ingredient and she wants to look up the recipe, she's remembering something that she saw you say on the morning show or whatever it is, or she's experimenting with other food, and she's looking at her own flavor palette to kind of understand how she can integrate it into something else. So that's certainly a big component of what's happening with her being connected before, during, and after the shopping trip. There's also, I mean, I think this gets a lot to your question, Annette. She wants people to stop, or Hispanic consumers generally want people to stop thinking that they only eat Hispanic foods or whatever country of origin it is that they connect to, right? There's this big push, certainly from a retail perspective, for brands to take them outside of that ethnic aisle, right? It's like, stop pigeonholing me and thinking I only walk to that aisle to shop those specific things. Understand that her, you know, their shopping cart is certainly a mix of all of the things, you know, that she's interested in today, but she has other things on her mind, whether it's looking for foods that are low in fat or high in protein. She expects organic, not because it's a big trend in the mainstream, but because it's very cultural to how we eat and how we shop. So it isn't just about stop pigeonholing me. It's also about understand me as a person and know that I don't live this Latino cycle. I don't live only in this Latino world. Latino is my foundation, but I'm a person and I have needs, you know, as a result of that. And then lastly, I mean, I think you guys certainly on the panel understand this. You know, she is looking for immersive experiences when it comes to food. Whether it's pulling up videos of you guys sharing ideas around a recipe, whether it's her herself taking her ideas to the digital space. I mean, what's been really interesting, especially in light of YouTube and like this Latino foodie phenomenon on YouTube, is that it's not just about one-dimensional inspiration and like pulling down that recipe. It's about like seeing him in the kitchen. It's about understanding their family dynamics, like when they're sharing that recipe. She wants to interact around food conversations. I won't take a ton of time here, but I thought that this might be interesting just from a marketing perspective. I think, again, brands are starting to come around to the idea that they need to understand Latinos much more holistically, and not just in terms of their food behaviors. I mean, this is what we're seeing across the board. There's still challenges, right, because that's how you justify your Hispanic marketing spend at the end of the day. But note that there's some brands that I think are really doing their due diligence to move to like what I call dropping the Latino label, right? Because we don't walk around with like this Latino sign on our foreheads all day. I love what Duane Reade has done because they've taken it beyond simply putting bilingual signage in their stores. They have really looked at cultural motivators that shape how all multicultural consumers shop, not just Hispanics. They're in New York, it's a very diverse market, but they've taken cultural insights and they've implemented that into how they've reformatted their stores. So they're not just putting up bilingual signage in their pharmacy department. They know that the pharmacist is at the forefront of like medical advice. The campaign is about bringing the pharmacist out behind the counter, having that accessibility because Latinos want to ask health questions in a non-intimidating environment because you're in there shopping for your makeup or you're in there shopping, you know, for your toiletries. I think the beach nut Goya one is an interesting one because some of you guys might recall Gerber Recetas from many years back, right? It didn't do well. It was a good product, but I think a lot of Hispanic consumers felt that it was kind of patronizing. Just because you throw the Hispanic colors and the information on, you know, it doesn't necessarily resonate with them. And they wanted to buy it, but I think it's, again, that resistance to, am I being thought of in a certain way? It's interesting to see, you know, the space kind of give it a try again with this Beach Nut Goya partnership. And for them, it's, you know, they're not focusing on the gimmicks. They're focusing on the ingredients of the product, knowing that most Hispanic consumers are looking at things beyond just what makes a label Hispanic, right? They're looking at the ingredients or reading the label, that type of thing. And I think with Wendy's, I mean, they have a good value proposition because, I mean, it's still fast food, but they focus on freshness, obviously. But I think to your point around what are marketers asking today, I think what's interesting with Wendy's is, you know, they're focusing on niche marketing, certainly still in Spanish and reaching out to Hispanic dominant consumers, but they're also increasingly embracing diversity from a mainstream perspective and using the Hispanic consumer to inform what they do from a total market perspective as well.
Great. And I definitely want to come back to some of the things you had mentioned, but I think this is a good segue to kind of talk about a company who's understanding this Latina's lifestyle and approaching it from that perspective.
Absolutely, thank you, Annette. So like Annette mentioned earlier, I work at Unilever and I manage the Vive Mejor platform. So for those of you who are not familiar with Vive Mejor is it's a foods, beauty, and lifestyle platform that talks to Hispanic women in the U.S. So what do I mean? So, you know, we know that like people every day as part of their life, they use different products and they're using different brands. And we are already organically part of that, of their lives. They're using our products and our brands already. But we want to be able to provide them with solutions that are actually relevant to that experience of the Latina in the US. So we embrace their heritage and we celebrate the roots and the values that make them unique. And a lot of our consumers are actually moms, like Barbie has mentioned. And they are actually looking for tools that help them pass on some of that heritage, some of those traditions to their kids. So that's one of the things that make us unique. We really hone on that heritage and on that celebration, and incorporate that across all the content that we provide in the site. So, well, across our platforms. We have a website and we're also present in social media. So the good thing is that we're lucky to be part of a big company that actually has a super strong portfolio of brands. And these brands mean different things to consumers, and that actually allows us to provide a very diverse database, I guess, of recipes. They're very diverse recipes. We have brands such as Knorr, which already has like a very strong equity with Hispanic consumers. Knorr actually feels home for them. And for example, with Knorr, usually our recipes tend to be much more like authentic and like, you know, the way that things are done at home. But then there are at home, right? And then there are other brands that are probably newer to them, such as, you know, maybe even Hellmann's or a Country Crock, like, or Ragu, you know, brands that they maybe didn't grow up with, but that they didn't know from back home. But as they get acquainted with the ways of, you know, doing things in this country, then they have incorporated these brands, and then these brands are also offering different recipes and different solutions that are relevant now to the way they do things in this country. So so I think that actually gives us a lot of leeway in terms of providing very different types of recipes. But one of the big things which you know, we offer very diverse recipes, and we're trying to capitalize on the trends, like Barbie was saying. It's not, one of our core things is that we are about this authenticity. So we do provide a lot of recipes that are authentic and like the way they were done at home. However, we see that consumers have evolved, and we have evolved with them. So we see that there are new trends, and consumers are looking for different things. And again, they're not just looking for like Hispanic food or Latin food, or they're not, you know, they're looking for things that are like recipes that are like quick and easy to do. So like all of those insights that Barbie was sharing are insights that we use and we take into account when we develop our own recipes. So that actually allows us to provide with a very diverse set of recipes. And recently we launched a whole new group, and I'm particularly proud of, I am Peruvian, so we recently launched like this authentic Peruvian ceviche, and it's being really like popular because it's actually kind of in trend in terms of like this. It has the perception of fresh and healthier, but at the same time we introduced like new cake pops recipe, something that they can do pretty quickly, and it's like the influence of kids at home that they're like asking for, you know, the things they see around and like the kids their friends talk about. So we want to be relevant and provide recipes that we know that are really part of their life and that they're organic and they're easy to do, and that they are actually, they don't have to like go, you know, above and beyond to find ingredients, but they're actually ingredients that are already part of their pantry. It's something that they already buy as every day. So we build our recipes with that in mind, with consumers being able to use things that they already have in their counter and their pantry, and that they can just like quickly put together. We know that Hispanic consumers are more comfortable in the kitchen, but that lifestyle is changing. So our recipes reflect that too. Yes, we have that 2-hour turkey that they will do during a holiday season, but at the same time we have like a 20-minute, you know, meatballs with like guava sauce that, oh, it speaks again to those trends of maybe blending or like a little bit of a fusion of that flavor that they're looking for the authentic Hispanic Latin flavor, but with like the easiness of, of like meatballs, something like American that the kids are asking for. So in addition to the recipes in the site, we also, again, like we were saying, a lot of our consumers are moms, and they're looking for these tools, to make their life easier, really, and this challenge of like passing on these things to their kids. One other thing that has been successful is we also have a lot of like content, like articles or little tidbits to help again make their life easier. So we as a Latina, I include myself, come from different countries, and even though we all like love fruit or like love certain vegetables, we call them differently. So sometimes it is even a challenge for them. They read a recipe and they're like, I'm not sure what that means. What's this fruit supposed to be? So tools like that where you can say it's not only a English-Spanish dictionary, it's actually a Spanish to Spanish dictionary where they can like eat quickly. They're at the supermarket and they can like grab their phone and quickly look and find, oh, okay, this is what it means. So now I know what I'm supposed to buy. Because we know that takes me to the next slide. We know that in order to provide our rich content, like we're very proud about the content, that we feel it's very relevant and it speaks to her, in a very like authentic way, but we need to be able to deliver it to her as well. So obviously our platform allows us to connect with her throughout the day, through mobile or, whether she's in her computer, on her tablet, on her phone. And she can find all these solutions, she can find all these recipes, just like by clicking on her phone and getting all this what we call like this Vive Mejor content in a very easy, seamless way. So that's basically our platform in a nutshell. And in addition to obviously the digital and the social media world like plays a huge aspect to it, we also like complement that we have spokespeople that we've worked like throughout the years and that have helped us not only deliver our message and talk about our content, but also it's a two-way conversation. We also want to know what consumers have to say, and like even though we are, we're always on top of the latest research and the latest trends, it's always great to get real-time feedback and real consumers' experience and their point of views. So our spokespeople are like a great mechanism, not only to like they help us like create some of these recipes, but also like get input from our consumers. So we try to be part of that conversation every day, even throughout like we're obviously present in store and we do like demos and we're part of events like this one, or we're part of like conferences or like different festivals, and we're always like talking to consumers and trying to get their input and at the same time like raise awareness of our rich content, that we hope that it's relevant for them. So basically that's Vive Mejor in a nutshell.
Yeah. Before we move on, though, I know we have a lot of Latina bloggers in the room also on our panel. You have such a great social platform with so many touch points. You've got a room filled of women who are your consumer. They're living this real life multitasking. Is there an opportunity for that to get involved? And do you look for brand ambassadors to work with the different brands?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying, like one of our, our ways of communicating our message is through spokespeople, and we're always interested in in working with people that live our message authentically, right? So we are looking for like bloggers, I guess in this case, that share common traits with who our consumer is. So people who can actually understand and talk about the experience of being a bicultural woman in the U.S. and who is looking for those like relevant solutions and those authentic solutions, that's passionate about it. So we're definitely very passionate about all our content, but obviously our food. It's like a big passion point, like all of here we're saying. So we're looking for people that are passionate about that, but that can help inspire others, can help inspire our women, to live their life better, to like embrace these tips and embrace these recipes and embrace like this way of doing things, because all we want to do is like help like make their life better. So I think that if we as long as we share like those common traits, it would be a good partnership.
Absolutely. And myself, working in public relations, often work with gatekeepers, both from the traditional media perspective to the social perspective. So I think that's a nice segue to just talk about, how is the media getting their content and deciding, what to share with the audience and what is it that the viewers are asking for.
Oh, sorry, it was
Yes.
You got into my business now.
yeah. Sorry, can you say that again?
Oh, no, I think it's a good segue to start
segue,
talking
okay.
about the media, yes, in terms of what is it that the viewers are asking for.
My turn, right?
Yep.
Yes.
I thought
Let me
so.
have this one. There you go. How are you all doing? Good? Are you guys happy?
They're looking forward to the baby.
Yeah.
It's Friday.
Well, when it comes to, I'm very happy because we're talking about something that it's on my daily basis, and it's food. Food surrounds my everyday because, well, of my different businesses and then my career. As they mentioned before, I started doing television many years ago, and it was all about a dream. I come from a very, I would say, this is a trendy word nowadays, a foodie family, or a family of foodies, where my mom, my dad, my whole family was always looking for, experiencing new foods, different flavors, and it's in my case, it's very different from the typical Latino family because my parents were not Latinos. My parents are Arabic, both, but I was born in Venezuela, so I was like exposed to this craziness where, my mom was trying to make Latino dishes that were not good, but with time they started getting a little better, and nowadays I've learned so much from her and from my dad, and I think it's a blessing to have two cultures blended together, and having the opportunity in my case to show that to people. That's one of the things I love about my career. I get to show people how to do certain things and how to make their lives easier. I tell them all the time, I do the hard job, the hard work, and then you do the easiest thing. I look for shortcuts and stuff like that, and that's what people look for nowadays in television and social media and YouTube. In every kind of platform, we're not looking for dishes that take 4 or 8 hours to cook. We're looking for something on the go because we're running, we're working, we're doing so much stuff nowadays that we definitely have to look for a way to save time. And that's what basically what we do basically in every aspect of what James Tahan is nowadays. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I do, me, and when I say what I do, it's not only me because it wouldn't be possible without my team. I have a huge team behind that help me through my everyday job basically. So James Tahan, that symbol before my Chef James thing is for Twitter and Instagram, so you might all rather go and follow, and I'll take a selfie in a bit and put it in and tag you all. Just kidding. I can't tag you all, but I'll put a picture in a bit. I'm big into social media. I think social media, it's the future. We are on. I think it's like a live thing where you get to know what your celebrities, your idols are doing, and especially with food. You check bloggers, and I think to be honest with you, bloggers are my idols nowadays. I get so much inspiration, so much ideas from bloggers that it's just unbelievable. Sometimes I do a daily show, and I have to do recipes for every single day. So doing this for 3.5 years, can you imagine how many recipes I've come up with? Your creativity disappears at a certain point. And then you have to, run to bloggers like my friends and some of you in the panel. Some of you in the panel and some of you out there to get inspiration, to get ideas. And then obviously give these ideas a twist, give these ideas your personal, touch to make them unique. And it's a lot of work, but when you love something, I don't call it work. I think it's just fun, So Telemundo's Kitchen. Telemundo is one of the biggest Hispanic networks in the world, and I have the blessing of being part of this big network. I co-host and I'm the chef for the morning show, And it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of production to get a recipe out there. The way we do it is that we sit together, a group of people, me and my team, my Telemundo team, because now I'm going to start mentioning my teams, and you're going to be like, yeah, it's quite a lot of people that make all this happen. But Telemundo, we sit down and we look at, 2 weeks in advance, we look at what's happening in the next 2 weeks. Important dates, holidays, stuff like that. Let's say it's December, Thanksgiving's coming up, so we have to come up with a Thanksgiving recipe, or Mother's Day, or any of these big dates. We kind of do something that's a perfect dish for that occasion. But not only that, I also try to make. When I started television, I said, okay, there's a lot of people that do television, especially chefs. We see chefs, they became a trend. They're now rock stars. I think they are. And I got to this conclusion because one day I was in Vegas and I go to the Caesar's Palace, and there was a big room, huge, with 2 celebrities. And there was Chuck Norris. You guys sure know him, right? He's old school, but we all know him. And then there was Bobby Flay. The line behind Bobby Flay was maybe 250 people, and then behind Chuck Norris there was maybe my mom and my dad. So it was kind of, at that point I said, okay, chefs are trendy. So the thing when I saw that, I said, okay, if I'm gonna become a chef at a certain point, I need to make something different. And the way I did this was, if I do television, I want to show people the processes of everything, of how we make this, the step in the middle. A lot of times in television, and I'm sure you've seen it, they say, okay, you put this, and then you have this, and then magically there's this amazing thing, and you're like, really? Okay. So instead of doing it that way, I told my production team, okay, I want to do the 3 steps. This is the way we started. This is the way it looks after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then this is the final product. But the final product, because it got to a point where it's funny. To me, it's really funny. They would say, okay, you take this chicken, you stuff it, you do this, do that, put it in the oven, and then they don't even take the chicken out of the oven. They take a plate, and it's already served and beautiful, and they're like, really? How do you serve that? And to me, it was a question mark at a certain point, because myself, I watch television, I watch cooking television, and I was like, how does he do that? How does it look so good? And I said, okay, I'm gonna do every single step to make this, understandable for people at home. So we do the first, the raw product, we season it, we put it in the oven, we say after 30 minutes it's gonna look like this, look like this, and then after an hour, this is the final product, we are gonna cut it, and then I'm gonna serve it. Because we noticed, and this is all through social media, people wanted to know how to plate. And it was one of the biggest question marks people had at home. We Latinos tend to throw food in the plates. And we all know this. Arroz, frijoles, y carne mechada. Boom! On top of the plate. And then they bring you a mountain of food, and you're like, really? So in Telemundo particularly, that's the way we did it. We sit down 2 weeks in advance. We talk about, the things that are going on. And then we also look for the seasonal ingredients. So we try to always cook with what's in season. In the United States, it's very difficult because there's some stuff that's in season in Florida, and then in New York, it's a whole different thing, and then in California, it's a whole different thing. So we go through every single state, and we take some of the ingredients that are in season in all of them, So it's accessible, and people would have the opportunity to go to the supermarket and get it. So after we decide that, I come up with the recipes, I write them down, we test them, and then, it happens. They basically go on air. So that's the way Telemundo works, 2 weeks in advance. Then, that's my Twitter and my Instagram again. I guess I'm going the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay, my kitchens. Well, I have a cooking school that was one of my dreams when I started into the food industry. Cooking industry, food industry, and that's my website. That's the way it looks like. Surprisingly, my website, as soon as we started the website, it blew up. Like people started going to the website. People en Español, one of the biggest, I'm sure you all know it. People en Español is one of the biggest Hispanic magazines in the US. Called me and they're like, we want you to be the chef for People en Español magazine. And when we sat down with them, they said, we want you to do it because in 10 years that we've been doing food, we've never had someone that explains the way you do it. You do it like if you're explaining, you know, food or cooking for dummies. Very simple. And that has been the way I wanted to do things. Even in television, I wanted to do things in a simple way so people would understand it. I don't make anything by telling you cook this and plate it like this and use this mold and that, because you're not going to do it at home. And I want you to do it. And the way I tracked this was make it and send me your pictures through Instagram or to Twitter, and people started doing it. Amazingly, like I started looking at my Instagram and all kinds of recipes from my website where people were posting them, and it was great. So that's one of the things I focus on. And the way we do this is also following the trends and more or less the same, I would say, logistics that we follow in Telemundo, we follow for the website and in my kitchens in general. We teach in the school, it's called face-to-face cooking. I wanted to bring television to a reality. A lot of people tell you, oh, it looks amazing in television. I can't even smell it and I can't taste it. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do something in Miami, and obviously we're looking to expand, where you're gonna be able to come and be part of a cooking experience where you sit down around a counter, people cook, and then you start just, you know, trying your food, drinking wine pairing. So it's a very cool concept. From there, churros. I love churros, by the way. Big staple of Latin American cooking. My latest project we opened 2 weeks ago is my first Miami restaurant. It's called Sabores by Chef James. And she was mentioning it, Barbie, I love your name. She was talking about it. We said, okay, what's the concept? I said, okay, where am I from? Latin America. And I'm very proud of Latin America. I went to a French culinary school. And after I left French cooking school, I said, we focus so much in Europe when it comes to cooking, and we don't even know ourselves what we have in Latin America. Especially when you get to experience, my favorite ingredient in the world is chiles. Not because they're spicy, but because they're so aromatic, they have so much flavor. They're amazing little ingredients that can bring you so much to your cooking. You just need to start using them a little more and understanding the flavor profiles, the smell, the aroma, this and that. And I said, okay, I'm gonna use some classic recipes, and then, as you said, I'm gonna Latinize them because I just wanna give them a touch. So it's something where I took some French recipes, some French classics, and I said, how do I Latinize it, you know? So we have like braised shore ribs that we braise for 8 hours, but the braising liquid, it's a Mexican dark beer. We use some guajillo chilies, and then we use all kinds of spices. And then we cook it for 8 hours. The color is just unbelievable. We serve it, what would French people serve it with? Mashed potatoes, right? Technically, that's what they do. How do I take it to my side, to Latin America? I serve it with a malanga puree. Malanga, once you get to try it, it's a root vegetable. It's silkier, it has a much better texture than potatoes, it has much more flavor. And then the malanga, I put some goat cheese in it to give it more flavor. And then it's an amazing dish, and it's completely Latinized. For example, I make croquetas. So the croquetas we make are serrano ham and manchego cheese croquetas. I wanted to give it a twist. So what I did, I made a guava or guayaba marmalade that has an infusion of rosemary. And when you put them together, it might sound strange, but when you try them, there's such an amazing harmony of flavors going on in your palate. You guys gotta come and honestly try all these things that I'm telling you about. Not because it's my restaurant, but because you have to. It's a cool concept, and the way we called it, it's pan-Latin flavors with a contemporary twist. So we kind of take a lot of time into presentation, and we want to make the plate look beautiful. Again, trying to stay away from that throwing the food on the plate Latino style, you know? My community, and I think this is what makes all happen, it's my social media. I mean, a lot of the things that we decide to air on television and on the website, and the recipes that we cook, and even the logo for my restaurant was picked by the audience. I didn't pick my logo. I posted 3 or 4 logo options from my designers on my Instagram, on my Facebook, on my Twitter, and I said, you guys decide. I'm opening a restaurant, and I want you all to decide which logo you like. After that, we had over 100,000 votes from people, and we started counting one by one, and we said, okay, this is the winner, and that's our logo. That's Sabores' logo. I think social media plays a major role nowadays in everything, especially in food. People ask you questions. I have, in Telemundo, we have a tip section where we basically answer people's concerns at home. How do I make my ceviche? There's a big problem with ceviche and limes. When you squeeze the limes, the bitterness from the skin and the lemon goes in the lemon, and then when you try the ceviche, it's bitter. So how do you make that, how do you stop that from happening? Well, the way you do it is you don't squeeze the limes too much. You clean your hands every single time you squeeze a lime. Those tips, we basically ask people, what do you need? How do I help you? And they send us tweets, Instagrams, Facebook posts, and everything. And that we pick from there, and then we answer. And that's the way it works. And I think social media is just an amazing tool for all of us that are in the food business.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I love the way that you incorporated with your logo in terms of having that two-way engagement and being really creative. And I think our next 2 panelists, that's really what they're all about, is creating content but really opening that line of communication and having that two-way engagement.
Hi. Bueno. And that's not fair. I have to go after you. All this amazing chef. I was not culinary trained. I learned from being in the kitchen with my mom and my grandma.
Those are the best, let me tell you. Because after we go to culinary school, you learn much more outside cooking school than you did in culinary. So these are the ninjas in the kitchen.
And those were the memories that I had as a child, that when I would get out of school, my grandma would be there waiting for me so that she could start making her flour tortillas, and just sitting there in the kitchen and just watching her hands and rolling the dough and making tortillas every day. Those were the memories that I'll treasure forever. And when she passed away, my mom asked me, what do you want from grandma that she left behind? I was like, all I want is her rolling pin. And I have that rolling pin today, and it's just, that's what keeps me motivated and inspired to just keep sharing this with my own children. And so it's so cute, because when they're making empanadas and they're helping me, they said, oh, we need grandma's rolling pins. Like, you need to go ask her. I mean, she's passed away, of course, but it's like they say, grandma, me prestas tu palote? So, they know that it's something that I treasure, and that they believe that as well. So that's just my goal with my blog. What I started is actually wanted to write a cookbook. That was my biggest mission. I didn't know how I was gonna do it, when I was gonna do it. I just knew I wanted to do it. So talked to my mom and my sister, and I said, come on, girls, let's do this. Let's write these recipes down. So it's 3 generations of Mexican recipes. So recipes from my grandma from Chihuahua, from my mom, more Southwest, El Paso style, and then mine's more Latin modern fusion. So, and with that, a friend said, you really need to start a blog. And I said, I don't know what a blog is. But I was a graphic designer, and once I started looking at other blogs, I was like, well, I can do that. So I designed a blog, and luckily it's led to amazing things. It's now I develop recipes for Betty Crocker, and it's really fun because my kids are very involved in the kitchen with me, and so they love, I say, pick them up from school, it's like, okay, hurry up, put on a pink and red shirt because we're going to do a little Valentine's photo shoot. So, they get really excited about it. They've learned a lot of culture and a lot of the things that I grew up with, like celebrating Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, or just, different things that they've learned and they're falling in love with too. So it's been really nice to incorporate my love of food and traditions with my children. Like I said, I contribute to different places, so I write for Parade. And Clabber Girl is actually, I'm a brand ambassador. Does anybody know who Clabber Girl is? What Clabber Girl is? You gotta know.
I know.
I bet you 80% of you have a little can of Clabber Girl in your pantry. It's baking powder. And we all, if you're making flour tortillas, if you're baking, if you're making cookies, you're gonna need that baking powder. And so, I'm proudly sponsored by Clabber Girl. But I only work with brands that I truly use and love, because I don't think it would be authentic otherwise. So I work with brands like California Strawberries, Clabber Girl. Who else do I work with? I don't know. It's too much work. But it's been fun, and I like what you said about getting inspiration from other bloggers, because we do that too. We go to magazines, we go to food shows, we go to the TV. All what we can do is get some ideas and come up with fun recipe ideas, whether it's putting a spin on an old traditional Mexican recipe and making it healthier, or just coming up with something fun. And growing up, we didn't have a lot of appetizers or stuff like that, so it's like fun coming up with fun appetizers or cocktails or just more entertaining stuff with our flavors. California Strawberries, I went recently to the farms and learned all about strawberries. It was amazing. I love to learn where we get our food from. That's my biggest passion. It's like the food that we just take for granted. The one thing that I thought was so amazing out of that entire trip is seeing the field workers, picking the strawberries, and it comes in the little clear containers with the little vents. And I thought that was like a rinsing tool. That's what it's for, so the drains, the water. I just thought that's how I thought for some reason like a conveyor belt took all these strawberries away and rinsed them, and then there would be a packaging plant or something. But the guys who are there, the men and women who are picking the strawberries, are literally putting them in those clear containers. They're never washed. They're directly put in those containers. And to me, that was like, wow, that's amazing. They're such a sensitive fruit that you can't handle them too much. So and they're very fresh. That's what's amazing, is as soon as they pick them, they put them in a warehouse to cool for a little bit, and then they ship them off. So you'll get your California strawberries in, depending where you live, it's a drive away. They'll get faster to Paris because they fly them overnight versus going to New York. So it's just amazing. So it's like, when you're ever buying strawberries, another thing is buy them, 1 or 2 days before you need them. And because they're constantly stocking them. That's how fast they're coming into your grocery store. So if you're gonna have a party on a Friday, don't buy them on Monday. Go back a couple days and get your strawberries nice and fresh. So it's amazing. That's my BFF, Michelle Obama. I had an amazing opportunity to meet her. I was writing with Mommyverse, and they called me out of the blue saying, we're looking for a Latina who is passionate about healthy cooking, and would you be interested in going to meet somebody pretty special? I was like, well, who is this special person?
Very special
yeah, person. And so it was a secret that I had to hold on because I couldn't share it with anybody. And so then finally, when they told me, I was so excited, and so it was just great to sit down and talk with her as a mom who is all about feeding her children healthy, and I'm super inspired by her Let's Move campaign. And I love that she said that Barack Obama, no matter if he's in town, obviously he travels a lot, but if he's in town, they're at the dinner table at 6 o'clock, and as a family. And to me, that's really important, because that's our thing. It's like, I get mad at my husband's like, you better tell me if you're late, because dinner's on the table. So that was what I loved growing up, and my kids totally expect it now, and they love it, and it's our little routine. So.
And I think that's great because I think for a lot of the bloggers in the room, you know, it truly is a business for you all, and to see kind of where you started and all the opportunities and additional avenues that have opened up for you. I mean, I don't know that you can top this.
No.
That's a pretty special experience, and having a cookbook and being able to do it with your family. And I think that's a real inspiration just to show bloggers who are just starting out the opportunities that are available with working from brands to contributing to outlets that just give you additional avenues to share your content with and your expertise. And I know that you and VNA collaborate a lot as well in some of the projects because you're both in this niche, you know, food, Latina food bloggers, and you've chosen to hone in on that, which is fantastic. But before we get into VNA talking to us about some of your projects, what would you say in terms of advice to some bloggers? You know, do you find that it's competitive, or is there room for everyone to kind of make this their business and see it grow? And what's some advice that you have?
This conference is a perfect opportunity to make relationships. When I first started, I think it was really hard because, you know, you're kind of pigeonholed, like, oh, you're a Mexican food blogger. Oh, you're a, you know, whatever. I mean, whatever. Everybody's in their little niche. And it's been nice to finally get to know so many food bloggers and trying to figure out a way how to work together. So, you know, we've been part of campaigns that we're able to work together and not be competitive. So there's opportunities of you do YouTube videos to maybe, you know, partner up with another person who does videos and work with them together. And I think that's what this conference should be about, is, you know, to really network and see how you can figure out how to work together in the future. And
there's plenty of brands. There is so many brands. There is room for everybody in this niche. And food blogging just opens so many doors. So I think that's what I use my platform, my blog is. I base my blog on sharing my culture, my heritage, and like Barbie touched, I do a lot of the quick meals because I believe, and if you look on my Instagram, every Instagram picture on my has a hashtag comer juntos. That's what I believe in. I believe in everyday dinner, daily dinners together as a family. So I have a lot of brands approach me and, you know, say, well, what can we work together? Or can you bring me a dinner that's authentic in 30 minutes? Sure, I can do that. Because a lot of people, I think, like Barbie said, we're actually mainstream. We're very heavily mainstreamed, but don't box us in with just tacos and tamales. Those are always gonna be there, I adore them, but not everybody every day. You do not have time to make tamales. Wednesday, after you pick everybody up from soccer, you know, homework and stuff like that. And of course, those will always be on my blog. That's part of my heritage that I share, but you know, I need a meal in 30 minutes that has the flavors that I grew up with. And a lot of people don't stop to realize that our food is very fresh. It's got produce, it's got cilantro, it's got herbs, it's got spices, it's got chiles. Our food is very fresh. We're not just like tacos and tamales, we're ensaladas. You know, we're, like Barbie said, I'm very passionate about breakfast. I do atoles, I do quinoa, I do so many things. Pancakes, you can change them. You can Latinize so many things. I love that word. And I think that's what I focus on. So Instagram, social media has been such a great vessel to show, you know, because people want to know what you're eating, what is she cooking. So I hashtag most of my meals every Sunday, no matter what I am or doing. I always make time to have Sunday dinners at my house. And my mom did it. My mom worked 2 jobs. One of her most important thing in her life was like, I work 2 jobs to get you ahead. On Sunday, los vamos a sentar en la mesa todos juntos a comer. So we followed that tradition, and now it's to where everyone comes to my house. You know, we're blessed to have everybody live close to us, and we have Sunday dinners. So most of what we eat on Sunday, you'll see it on my blog Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They're easy 30-minute meals that are with the flavors of Mexico. You know, I'm a Tejana too, so vas a ver fajitas, pero that's got a peanut ancho chili sauce over it. You know, that's what I focus on. That's what I advocate for, you know, comer juntos. And that's what I appreciate when, like, I've just recently signed with Tabasco, and they didn't come to me and say, you know, well, I want this, I want this, I want this, put Tabasco in it. No, me dijeron, here's Tabasco.
we see you as an expert. We see you that you're reliable. We see that you're active on social media. Here's our product. You do what you want. And that's what I like. I like when brands see me as that, hey, I know what I'm doing. You know, I do this for a living. This is what I do. Just like him, we're in food all day. We'd love to have a team like he has. But that's what I appreciate. And I think a lot of bloggers don't use social media enough to promote what they do so brands see you. I think that if you're on a blogger and you want to get ahead, you need to be active on social media, sharing what I do, what I make, what products I love. You know, hey, Goya, I love your stuff. Let's talk, you know? Look at my blog, you know, this is what I made for dinner, you know? I think social media is such an open door to start communication, start talking to your readers, and I think brands see that. And then when a brand comes to you, they're gonna see, this is a seasoned blogger. You know, she's active social media, she's active in posting, she's active on Facebook. If I ask her to represent me, my brand, my content is gonna be on her blog, indefinitely. As a seasoned blogger, you're always growing your audience, you're always meeting new people. Your post containing their product will be on your blog indefinitely. Every month, my traffic grows, my audience grows. Guess what? They're seeing that post. Sooner or later, it's gonna be found organically through Pinterest, Instagram, social media. So I think that's a really good tip for bloggers that want to start in this business. Be active on social media. Make your presence known. You're actually visually creating your brand on Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook. Brands like that. They'll see that. They'll see you as an expert, as you know, you are. So.
Yeah. And I think both of you touched on in terms of going to Avery Island, to Tabasco, going to the Strawberry Board. I mean, it's an investment, and it isn't a big investment for brands to bring you out there, host you for a few days, but it pays off because it gives you a deeper understanding in terms of the process. And we know, as Barbie said, that, you know, that authenticity, people want to know where things are coming from and stuff. And so it's not just experimenting in the kitchen, but it's living it and seeing it. And then you are, as gatekeepers, able to share that with your readers. And so I think it's really fantastic when brands are able to do that and really, you know, grow these brand advocates. Great. Well, you know, I think after all this talk about food, I don't know about you, but my stomach is grumbling. So I think we're going to do the Q&A a little bit different. I think I'd like to invite you all to grab a drink, grab a cupcake, and all the panelists are going to hang out to answer any questions you have. After all, it's Viernes Social, right? So we have a few more minutes. You don't have to rush out, but that way you can at least enjoy and get to meet these fabulous folks. So thank you again. I think that all of you, you know, shared some great insights. Just your different areas of expertise, and we know that this is an area that Latinos are passionate about. So,
Okay.
yes, of course, yes.
Sorry.